afternoon, I'm going to be your moderator. I just want us to pause for a minute just to invite the presence of the Lord here with us this afternoon. So I'm just going to be praying, so I just ask us to get in a mode of reverence. Loving Lord, we want to thank you for today. We want to thank you for your goodness. We want to thank you for your mercies that constantly keep running after us. We want to thank you for protecting us. We want to thank you for this platform where we can come and discuss issues as it relates to our health. Thank you so much for your goodness. Thank you for your love. For Christ's sake. Amen.
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 Right, good. Now, I want to use this opportunity to welcome you all to the Ministry of Health and Wellness in collaboration with the Southern Regional Health Authority COVID vaccine sensitization platform. Of course, we are coming to you live from the Southern Regional Health Authority Emergency Operating Center. I will be your moderator for the program, and with me in the EOC this afternoon, we have Mrs. Veronica Miller-Richards, Regional Health Records Administrator at the Southern Regional Health Authority. We have also Jenilyn O'Connor-Guy, and she's our Regional Pharmacist at the Southern Regional Health Authority. Both are going to be manning the virtual hand, and they're also going to be posting the questions in the chat. Now, at this time, I'm just going to invite our regional director, Mr. Michael Bent, and he's just going to be welcoming and greeting you this afternoon. Mr. Bent?
Okay, good afternoon. Thank you, Mrs. Titley. Good afternoon, everyone. I am very pleased to see the turnout. I'm looking at the number of participants rather, and I'm seeing it close to 500. So as your regional director, first of all, let me commend you and the EOC team for arranging this sensitization session. At the Southern Regional Health Authority, we take the vaccination program very seriously, and it is very important that we reach across as many persons as possible, because we believe that the vaccine is one of the answers to help us overcome this pandemic. I also want to thank Dr. Ennis, Melody Ennis, I know Director of Family Health, and it has been a very hectic time for you, Dr. Ennis. You have been here, there, everywhere, every platform, every radio station, every talk. You are most person in demand now, eh? And we really appreciate you taking time out to come to the Southern region to again do another sensitization. For the participants, I'm very grateful to see you sacrificing the time at this time of the evening, now on a weekend, to participate in this session. And we do hope that at the end of the session, you'll be well fed in terms of information, removing all the myth. And as it says that we want to get the facts, dispel myth. And so that by the end of the day, if there are any myths at all, those will totally be dispelled, and you'll be running in line to get your vaccine. So again, I wish for you all a very productive evening. I know it would be a robust session. We have a very good presenter, and we have the facilitator in terms of Mrs. Hitler and her team in the regional office to moderate and ensure that things go well. So again, have a very good evening. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Bent, for your timely words. This afternoon, we would love to leave a lot of time for question and answers. So because of that, we're going to go straight into our presentation, because we want you to be asking all the questions as it relates to vaccine. We have a great presenter. Our guest speaker for the afternoon is Dr. Melody Ennis, and she's the Director for Family Health at the Ministry of Health and Wellness. Now, Dr. Ennis is a veteran in this area. I can tell you she has mastered the area. She's very energetic. She knows how to break it down. She will be giving you all the facts that she knows, she'll be giving you. But she's very interested in your concerns in relation to the vaccine. So most of us, you want to hear all the concerns you have out there as it relates to the vaccine. I just want to invite you to bowl hard. She has a good bat, so you can bowl her hard. Ladies and gentlemen, I just want you to put your hands together, your virtual hands, and help me welcome to this platform, Dr. Melody Ennis.
Thank you so very much, everyone. I have to start by addressing Mr. Bent. Mr. Bent, sir, we have not started the discussion this evening and the platform is full.
Exactly. That's how we do it in Southern region.
But it simply means that this platform is not enough, sir. It's unbelievable at the beginning. But I want to thank everyone so much for coming, and I will thank you even more for staying at the end. So I'm going to get right to it because this evening we are going to be talking vaccines, and we're going to be talking a lot about vaccines. So I am now sharing my screen. And I'm about to put it on slideshow.
Hello.
And yes.
Yeah. Can I come to your WhatsApp? And video call you can.
Hello, could the host try?
Okay, I'm just going to ask persons just to mute your mic so we can have a easy ongoing of the program. Please just make sure that your mics are muted. Okay, and just please pay attention to all the things that we are posting in the chat. Thank you.
Workforce are advancing quickly. Life-changing opportunities are arising.
Okay, I think we are just about ready to go, Madam Little. I can go.
Let's not go right ahead.
Great. So we're talking vaccines, plenty vaccines this afternoon. Let us begin. Let's get the show rolling. Well, you know, over the last year, the scale is not looking too well. And medicine is really not doing so hot at all because fear, anxiety, separation, loneliness, no money, lockdown. But guess what? Deaths have been plaguing the entire world. The world is pretty much in anguish, and that has really thrown medicine a curveball and taken over the distress of the world. So, what has medicine done? So, we have tried many things. We've looked at the several medications that we already have to see if they could end this spate of anguish. We have looked at dexamethasone, we have looked at antiviral medication, we went to antibiotics, we went to some medication they use in heart patients, and now we are down to ivermectin, medication that if you're a dog lover, then you will know about ivermectin. So we have tried all of these medications that we know, but guess what? It's not moving the scale in the right direction. You know, there are close to over 120 million people that have been infected with the coronavirus. And worse than those who have been infected is the fact that 2.65 million persons have died across the world. And of course, Jamaica is adding to that number. You know, our death toll, and every day we hear of another set of persons approaching even double digits that are dying from this illness. So this brings us to what exactly can help to stop this pandemic. And we now are at the point of vaccines. So what are vaccines? These are really substances, medicines, in fact, given by injection, drops, or nasal spray. Now, we are accustomed to the ones by injections because we have all received measles, mumps, and rubella, or diphtheria, or tetanus, so we're used to the injections. And we are familiar-ish too with the drops because we have taken the polio drops, but we're not too accustomed to the nasal spray at all because it's not used here. The influenza vaccine comes as a nasal spray. And if you are following the news, you would have heard that Cuba is making a vaccine for the coronavirus that uses this method of getting into the body. But be that as it may, what these vaccines do is to stimulate our bodies to produce what we call antibodies or germ fighting tools. And these tools allow us to produce a stronger and quicker immune response to invading organisms. So the big question is, what is this immune response I'm talking about? Well, it really is our body's ability to resist, to fight off, to withstand, to counteract a particular infection or toxin. And we do this by using specialized cells that become sensitized. And once they have been exposed, they develop memory, and therefore, on re exposure, they can protect us adequately. So, if we liken this immune system to the army, look at the Jamaica Defense Force. We have soldiers, and there are different categories of soldiers having different functions, but their overarching role is to do what? Protect us, protect the country, and protect all of its citizens. How do they do that? Well, they gather intelligence. No, so? So they go out and they look at the strategies and tactics of what opponents could possibly do when they attack Jamaica. And they are in their little upper camp and they figure out how to combat all of this. And we are a safe country. All right. So the body's immune system is similar. We have these cells, the white cells, different ones of them, having different functions, but the main thing is to do what? Protect us. But they have to gather intelligence, just like the army. They have to gather intelligence. And guess what provides this intelligence? Vaccines. So when we get the vaccine, the cells look at it and say, this is what the germ, the real germ, is going to look like. And therefore, I must now go and prepare my ammunition so that when the real thing comes in, I can attack. And that's exactly what happens. The vaccines act as the intelligence, and our bodies generate antibodies so that when the real stuff hits us, we can mount the appropriate immune response. So vaccines have taken on many different that we have had and we have been using over the years. We have the ones we call the live attenuated versions, and these are just the weakened versions of the virus. For example, measles, mumps, and rubella, yellow fever, chickenpox vaccine. And then you have the killed virus, and that is what is used to make the polio vaccine and the influenza vaccine. And then we have the toxoid now, which uses toxins that are produced by bacteria and viruses to make the vaccine. And I think, and I'm sure you will agree, that the tetanus toxoid vaccine is the all-time most used vaccine in this country. Because with every dog bite, with every rusty nail juke, with every drop and scrape up, everybody is running to the doctor for what? Their tetanus shot because we're afraid of lockjaw. So I believe, and I think you can agree, that tetanus toxoid, that vaccine, is the most widely used vaccine here. And guess what? It don't cause no problem. And then we have the subunit, recombinant polysaccharide and conjugate vaccine. I put all of these in one big group because they are formed by using subunits or particles of the virus or bacteria to make the vaccine. And this includes our hepatitis B and our human papilloma virus vaccine. So we have the vaccines, we have the different types of them, but some of them have some things inside of them called additives. And these additives really help to make the vaccines more potent, and it also helps to keep the vaccines stable and preserve them. So we're going to look now at some of the additives that may be present in some of the vaccines. So we have preservative, that's the first additive. And this actually prevents contamination once the vial is open. Now, this is preservative like what we use in our food. So your canned stuff and your bottled stuff comes and it has preservative in it. And if you open it, you have to refrigerate it. And no matter what you do, you can't keep it forever and ever because it will spoil. So we have preservatives just to prevent the vaccines from what? Spoiling. So we have stabilizers, and stabilizers prevent chemical reactions from occurring within the vaccine. They keep the vaccine components from sticking to the vaccine vial. We have something called surfactant that's present in the vaccines as well. Now, this keeps all the ingredients blended together and prevents settling and clumping. I like surfactant a lot because surfactant is what is used in ice cream. And we all know that if you purchase an ice cream and it grainy and gritty and tastes like milk powder, you are not going to purchase that ice cream ever again. We all love the ice cream that is smooth and just slivers off the tongue and takes us to heaven. And what allows for that to happen is surfactant. So you understand the amount of surfactant we eat in over time as compared to what might be in a vaccine. So now we also have residuals, and these are not active ingredients. They may be egg proteins, yeast, or antibiotics, and they are present in very small quantities, measured in parts per million or even parts per billion. And then we have something called diluent, which is really sterile water. The vaccines come usually as a powder, and in order to get it in the injection state, we have to make it turn liquid. So we add sterile water to dilute it and get it to the right concentration for injection. Adjuvants, these improve the immune response. So what causes the pain and tenderness at the site where you get the injection is the fault of adjuvants. Aluminum salts are also present in the form of phosphates, hydroxide.
Oh, I got it now. And unmute.
Do not cause any long-term health problems and are by and large found in the foods that we eat and drink. So now we know what vaccines are, what they do. Let us see how they are developed, because that is the crux of the problem. That's part of the challenge we're having now. How vaccine develop so quick. So I'm going to share with you a little vaccine development 101. I want you to take a listen.
How do you create a vaccine to fight a new disease? And why does it take so long? Well, first, you have to identify the virus or bacterium that causes the disease. In some cases, the pathogen itself can then be weakened or deactivated and used to make a vaccine. But this isn't always possible. In these cases, the next step is to identify the pathogen's antigens, unique protein or glycoprotein markers which can form the basis of a new vaccine. For some pathogens, these antigens always stay the same. Other pathogens, like the virus that causes flu, can change or mutate their antigens, and so these must be reanalyzed every year. Once you have identified the pathogen or antigens, you need to decide how you are going to use them to build a vaccine. This is called the vaccine platform. There are a lot of options here, like subunit vaccines that only use part of the pathogen. There are also newer or more experimental technologies, like viral vector or nucleic acid-based vaccines. But we'll get to these a bit later. You also need to decide how the vaccine will be administered. By injection into the skin or muscle, orally like the polio vaccine, or through the nose like some flu vaccines. Each of these options could affect the response the vaccine induces. For now, let's say you've decided on the platform and designed the vaccine. Next, it needs to be tested, first in cell cultures and then in animal models. This might include challenge studies, where animals that have been given the vaccine are deliberately exposed to the target disease to see if the vaccine protects them. Further down the line, and if the disease isn't too serious or effective treatments are available, humans might take part in challenge studies too. Once the vaccine candidate is proven safe in animals, you need to prove you can manufacture it to a high enough standard for people and at scale. This is called GMP certification. If the vaccine passes all of these stages, it's time to begin human trials. Normally, these come in 3 phases, and they all have to be passed. First, the vaccine is given to a small group of healthy people to test for adverse reactions. This is called the safety trial. Second, give the vaccine to hundreds of people to work out what dose is needed to trigger a big enough immune response. Finally, you can trial the vaccine in thousands of people to see how effective it is. This step is often the slowest, and participants are sometimes recruited around the world. Researchers have to wait for participants to come into contact with the pathogen naturally. By tracking how many become infected, they can work out how effective the vaccine is at protecting the group. It can take decades to gather enough data to be sure. But if you do, the vaccine can finally be licensed. There are still problems to overcome, however. Mass producing a vaccine to a high standard can be a difficult job. And once you've cracked production, you still have to deliver the vaccine to where it's needed. And then there's phase 4 monitoring, keeping track of rare adverse reactions the vaccine might cause, even though it's passed the previous trials. This trial process is very safe. That comes at a cost. It is also very slow. In an emergency, there are ways to speed things up, like reducing the time spent waiting for paperwork to be completed, or running different trial phases at the same time. But steps are never missed out. By working more efficiently, a protective vaccine could be produced in as little as 12 to 18 months, and advances in biotechnology could speed up production pipelines as well. And there are more ways we could speed up production. Let's come back to some of those newer vaccine platforms. Nucleic acid vaccines don't use pathogens or antigens directly. Instead, they deliver the genetic templates for the antigens. These DNA or RNA templates can be delivered directly or in lipid nanoparticles that help them to enter cells and improve their stability after injection. These nanoscale fat droplets encapsulate the RNA or DNA, protecting it as it enters the body. Some lipid nanoparticles can also act as adjuvants, molecular triggers to kickstart the immune response. Once inside the body, these DNA or RNA templates instruct our cells to start making antigens which activate the immune response needed to build immunity. RNA and DNA are much easier and faster to produce in the lab than antigens are. They're also potentially safer than vaccines that contain whole pathogens. That means they could hopefully be used by people with weakened immune systems. But nucleic acid vaccines are still experimental. Another approach is called a viral vector. Viral vector vaccines work by inserting an incomplete segment of genetic material from a pathogen inside a harmless virus that doesn't cause disease. This then acts as a vehicle for the genetic material, delivering it to the right place in the body where it can be translated into proteins, triggering the immune system. The viral vector may even be self-replicating, increasing the amount of vaccine in the body. Viral vector vaccines are also quick to produce. Safe vectors have already been established, and it is relatively easy to insert different target genetic material into these established carriers. And as the genetic material inserted is incomplete, they can't replicate and cause disease, so they're also very safe. But there is only so much the process can be sped along. Effective vaccines can save millions of lives, but before they are used, they have to be proven to be safe and effective. In the future, researchers hope to develop vaccines against non-infectious diseases like cancers, based on chemical markers called tumor neoantigens. Vaccine technology is developing every day, and it has a bright future, albeit a slow and methodical one.
Okay.
How do you create?
All right. So that was vaccine 101. Let's skip over this one for a moment because we spoke to this. All right. So we go right into the first myth that the vaccine, the COVID-19 vaccine, is not safe because it was rapidly developed. Now, there are about 3 or 4 things we should take away from that little show. One is that a different platform is being used to make these COVID-19 vaccines. It doesn't require any viral particle anymore. It doesn't require purification of the virus or bacteria anymore because it's a different platform. So let me give you an example. If I am walking from Manchester to Kingston, it is going to take me a very long time because the platform I'm using, what is that? My feet. Okay. If, however, I have a new method of getting to Kingston called the motor car, it is going to take me a very short time. But whether I'm walking or driving, I have to pass through, depending on where in Manchester I am, I have to pass through all the townships of Manchester. I have to pass through Clarendon. I have to pass through St. Catherine to get to Kingston. Because I am now driving, that does not remove the parish of Clarendon or St. Catherine. I have to still go through all of that pathway. And it's the same thing with the making of the vaccines. You're using a different platform. However, the pathway to safety has not been omitted or breached in any way. So these vaccines are safe and effective. They have gone through the same rigors of the FDA process, as well as other stringent regulatory authorities. And again, no steps have been skipped. But the second takeaway is that now we have global collaboration. Before all of this, R&D departments had to go and source their own funds, justify why they need funds, get persons to give them approval. Now that didn't happen in this case because there was global collaboration with money coming from everywhere. So all of these companies were allowed to speed through with their production. The other thing that is the third takeaway from the speed with which the vaccines were made is what happens in our phase 3 trials. In phase 3 trials, you need to find persons, thousands of persons across the world that has been exposed to a particular illness to see if the medication you are giving them will have an effect. So it used to take a long time to get people who are ill. But we didn't have that challenge over the last year because every next body had COVID-19. So it was easy. It didn't take any time at all to gather 30,000, 40,000, 25,000 persons to put in the phase 3 clinical trials. So we have not been shortchanged. We have gone through our first phase 1 safety trials with a small number of persons, and it was proven safe. That's the only way we could have moved on to say phase 2. Phase 2 had to be safe as well for us to move to phase 3 with thousands of persons before we were granted what? Which is where we are now, emergency use authorization. And the other thing is that because so many people are affected, the different phases of the trial could be run and continue to happen concurrently, as opposed to completion of phase 1 before you go to phase 2, etc. So what is this business of emergency use authorization? Everybody's talking about it. Well, this is simply a facility offered to the Food and Drug Administration, as well as the stringent regulatory authorities for vaccines, to use a unapproved medical product or unapproved uses of approved medical products to treat, to diagnose, and to save lives. But certain conditions must be met before these medications can be placed on this emergency list. One, you have to not have an alternative. And we saw that whole heap of things have been tried, but they are not a viable alternative to stopping this pandemic. So there's no alternative treatment. And we know that this thing will save lives. And therefore, this is the provision that is put in place to say, yes, go ahead, looking at the risks and benefits, there are more benefits to using this vaccine. All right, so we have a fair idea of vaccines, how they work, what they do, how they are made. But even though we are so confident in the manufacturing and use of vaccines, there are still some myths that we have to overcome. So let's go. The COVID-19 vaccine will alter my DNA. So if I take this vaccine, I am going to turn into another person. I'm going to grow some feet. I'm going to get extra hands, and I am going to be not human anymore. Well, this is far from the truth. Let's look at the scientific evidence. Well, first of all, the vaccine contains messenger RNA. That's one platform. The other platform contains the viral vector. All right. And these simply instruct the cells to do what? To make spike proteins that's found in the coronavirus. This messenger RNA, it never ever enters where? The nucleus, which is where our genetic material is kept. Additionally, this vaccine or these vaccines are removed from the body in a very short time. So it doesn't last, or they will not last beyond 48 hours within the body. As soon as the message is read, they are what? That is the science behind it. But let's look at the world. Now, over 70 million persons across the world have been vaccinated. I am almost sure that everybody on this platform knows somebody in a foreign that has received the vaccine. Actually, you might even know somebody here in Jamaica that has received the vaccine. Them growing any extra part? Have they changed? All right, so we're gonna move on from this myth. The next one is that the COVID-19 vaccine includes that tracking device. Now, I put it to you that all the governments of the world, they have all come together to say, we are going to give people things so that every time they go to the bathroom and poo, we know. Now, really, why would any such government or all governments be so interested in our every move? But be that as it may, let's stick with the facts of the manufacturing of vaccines. There is really no microchip in the vaccine that will track or gather our personal information. Vaccines are really solely only used to do what? Protect us from disease. Now, I believe that this myth of tracking is as a result of what we here know in Jamaica as Chinese telephone. Because, ladies and gentlemen, in truth and in fact, vaccine tracking takes place routinely. We track vaccines, but but we don't put anything into people and track the people. So that, I think that is where the confusion came in. But we track vaccines, for example, we track the cold chain. So you know the vaccine coming from India, and it have to go to Amsterdam, and then it have to go to Miami, and then it reach to Jamaica, and then it have to reach from our airport to our storage facility. Now, vaccines are only good if they are maintained at a particular temperature. So when you're traveling from OO to get to Jamaica, we have to track the cold chain. So when you reach to Jamaica now, there is this thing we call a temp tail, and we look at it and we say, from it leave, it's within the right temperature range. So yes, we can use it. If not, we can't. We also track the manufacturer. We track the batch number. We track the lot number. Because we say, suppose something go wrong with you when you get the vaccine. We want to know if it is coincidental, happen by chance, or is it really the vaccine? So we look at you, we look at the batch number that you take it from, we look at the lot number, we look at the manufacturer, and then we go and find other people in the population that get the same batch number, the same lot number, the same manufacturer. And guess what? Not a thing go wrong with them. So we are closer to say that, maybe this is a coincidental event. So guess what, everybody? Tracking happens, but we don't inject nothing in people and track them as they move around their daily business. So the next myth is the COVID-19 vaccines are made using fetal tissue. So everybody is saying that some dead baby from somewhere is now into this vaccine. Nothing don't go so. I'm not going to belabor this point much. I'm just going to show you the components of the vaccines that have been granted emergency use approval. So we have the Pfizer vaccine, and it having the messenger RNA, it having some fats, which are the lipids, it having some salts, and it having some sugar. That is it. It don't have no dead baby or parts of any dead baby in it. Moderna, which is the other one, also don't have any dead baby in it. It has same messenger RNA encoding for the spike protein. It has some more fats in it. It has some more sugars in it and some salts. All right. AstraZeneca, which is the one we have, it has some salts in it. It has some sugar in it. It also has some alcohol in it. But this is not alcohol to make us drunk or anything. It's not a good cups of alcohol. And it has water for injection. Okay? So that myth gone to rest. The next one, the COVID-19 vaccine causes infertility in women because they say they might give us something to kill off Black people and to stop the population of the world. Okay, so this vaccine really, it does not train the body to attack the syncytin 1, which is a protein.
Good evening. Could you just go back to the slide before? Just for a moment, please.
You want to take a picture?
Yes, please.
Why?
Yes, because I noticed you just skipped about.
I am going to speak about it. I'm going to speak about it. Don't worry about that. But take a picture. You get it? Click. You click. All right.
Yes,
okay.
yes.
Very good. All right. So we're into infertility now. So really and truly for this vaccine, there is no amino acid sequence that's shared between the spike protein and any placental protein at all. And, you know, it's interesting because quite a few persons who were on the phase 1 and 2 studies have indeed got pregnant and are delivering healthy babies. So this infertility thing is really not cutting it. And then again, if you look across the world, who are the persons getting the vaccines? It really is a lot of Caucasians and some Asian people, you know. The amount of Negroes that are receiving this vaccine that is destined for them to cause infertility is not so high at this time. So we need to also look at what is happening in the world. I have already been diagnosed with COVID-19, so I do not need to get the vaccine. Another myth. if you have already had the disease, you still need to take the vaccine. Why? Because we are unsure of how long natural immunity lasts. Okay? Natural immunity may not last for very long. And again, if you have been tracking the disease since last year, you would know that persons have had the disease more than once. So them get better, proper better, good, and then they get ill again. Okay? So natural immunity is not long lasting, and therefore the recommendation is that you get what? The vaccine. Another of the common myths include you COVID-19 from the vaccine. I don't need to belabor this point because you saw the ingredients or components of the vaccine, and the SARS-CoV-2 virus is not in any of them. So if it is not inside of the vaccine, how can the vaccine give you something that it don't have? So that's not making any sense. But now let's look at the other myth. It says, once I receive the vaccine, I will test positive for COVID-19. So we could use the same explanation that I gave a moment ago, that if it don't have it in, then it can't give you. But let us spend a little more time looking at this myth and to help us to understand why it is going around. So if I have the virus inside of me now, as I am speaking to you, and I am asymptomatic or pre-symptomatic, I'm not showing any signs at all of the disease, then you give me the vaccine tomorrow or Monday, and then you tell me after that, of course, I'm going to test positive for the virus because I said me did have it before me get the vaccine. It's not the vaccine give it, but I had it before, and therefore I could test positive after receiving the vaccine. All right, there is also another explanation for this. And the big question is, what are you testing for? Now, if you are doing an antibody test, then guess what? I am going to test positive. You want me to test positive because when you give me the vaccine, it is supposed to prime my body to do what? Remember those memory cells, those protective cells that are going to be generated? Those are the antibodies. So if you test me and you're doing an antibody test, then of course I am going to be positive. So when you hear this myth about once you receive the vaccine, you'll test positive, let us just break it down to understand what could possibly be people talking about. All right. So the COVID-19 vaccine has severe side effects such as allergies. All right. So does shrimp and lobster and peanut and wasp bite and bee sting and the grass out the door. But those are very rare and it occurs in few persons. It is not the vast majority of us that cannot go out into the environment. So yes, you can get severe effects, but they're extremely rare. And if you are allergic to a component of the vaccine, or if you have had a reaction after the first dose, then you will not be offered the vaccine or offered the second dose. Understandably so. So if you're allergic to peanut and you did eat it and swell up like bullfrog, go to the doctor, get better. When you come out, you ain't gonna eat peanut again because you don't want to get short of breath and swollen. It's the very same thing. If you get an allergic reaction to the first dose, then you won't get the second one. And then, of course, you have the other myth. Let me tell you something. Natural immunity is better and not contaminated my body with nothing. Now, natural immunity is good, but natural immunity comes at a cost. It comes at the cost of dying. We have seen where over 2.5 million persons have died already. So as we wait on natural immunity, it is highly possible that we will form a part of those that die. And we can just take the vaccine to build our immunity without the damaging effects of COVID-19, which in some cases equals death. So that's like the primary reason for not hanging around and waiting on natural immunity. We've been waiting for over a year now, and people are still dying. Our death rate in Jamaica is increasing daily, but we move on. Once I received the COVID-19 vaccine, so this is a easier one now because you take the vaccine and we want you to do that. I no longer need to wear a mask. No, 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 no. Mask wearing, hand washing, and physical distancing remain necessary. Why? Because we need sufficient numbers of persons to be immunized before we can go back to what we thought was normal. Okay? So the longer we stay to take the vaccine is the longer it's going to take us to get back to normal. We need to continue till enough of us are vaccinated. So we know, ladies and gentlemen, that what? That the vaccines are safe and effective. We know that they save lives because, you know, every year, 2 to 3 million lives are saved by what? Vaccines. We know that it will allow persons to return to normal quickly, which is where we all want to get back to. And, you know, we always talk medicine when we speak, but we should look at economy sometimes, because without a productive sector, there is no economy. So it will allow persons and countries to be able to open back their economies. Lots and lots of persons are suffering and suffering badly because of this pandemic. We've got to do something. So we come to the beginning now. Jamaica, yes, what's happening here? So we have our COVID-19 vaccine implementation program, yes. And it has some only a big word down the bottom, but all it means is that we're offering vaccines to the whole country in a phased basis, over time. We're offering it to the country, and it must be done in an organized way. That's all that is saying. And we have our objectives clear. Why are we doing it? We want to protect the integrity of the healthcare system so that we can continue to deliver essential services. We know that the hospitals are bursting at their seams. Them can't manage no more. Okay? We've got to safeguard the healthcare system, because if we are not able to deliver proper healthcare, our country is going to deteriorate. We have to have healthy people. All right. We have to also reduce severe morbidity and mortality, especially in the population that is dying. Now, can you imagine that these persons who are dying, they contributed so much to our society, and we cannot even celebrate them life at a funeral? We've got to do something to stop our older persons from dying this way. And then we have to reduce the transmission of infection in the community. And I like this one. You know why I like this one? And I think this one is so important, because I say all of we are not practicing the infection prevention and control measures as we should. All right, so we're a little bit tired, and we're tired of the mask, and we're tired of the hand washing, and we're tired of the social distances. I understand, but it is because we're not doing those things why we're having this community spread. You know, my thing is everybody, for the few of us in the country that we are in the mask the proper way, covering the nose and the mouth. So we're wearing it good. And then guess what? When we're ready to speak, when we're ready to talk, we back off the mask. Now, is when spit fly out our mouth. Is when I'm not speaking and the mask. No, it flies out when we are talking, when we are emphasizing. And that is when we take off the mask. Nothing don't go so we need to keep on the mask, covering the nose and the mouth when we are speaking. So we have to get something to reduce transmission because we're not behaving ourselves as we should. All right, so we vaccinating healthcare people, the elderly. This is who we're vaccinating. Non-healthcare frontline workers, such as persons in the Jamaica Defense Force and Jamaica Constabulary Force, the infirmaries, residents of nursing homes, institutionalized persons, or teachers or parliamentarians. I don't think I have to justify this list, but I'm going to say we are vaccinating our healthcare professionals first, because instead of them dealing with the sick people, they are directly exposed. We're vaccinating the elderly because them dying, and we want to stop the death. Then we have our non-frontline workers. They are the ones that are walking shoulder to shoulder in the community trying to maintain some sort of order and quarantine. So they have to get it too. Now, persons in infirmaries and residents in nursing homes, they don't have the capacity to wear a mask all the time, to hand wash all the time. And, when you get to all the prisons, I don't know any prison in the world where all the inmates can stay 6 feet away from each other. So it's understandable that we're going to be vaccinating these persons in the early phase of the process. The teachers. So we know the teachers, they have to interact. They're up and down on the bus, especially if them in the early childhood teaching business. When all of the running nose pitting, them going to run out of them at morning time. Teachers are great people, I tell you. And then we have the parliamentarians. Again, just like how if we don't have the health sector running, if we don't have any governance structure, the whole country is in chaos. But outside of that, a lot of our politicians also fall in the group of the elderly. So whichever way you take it, they're going to get vaccinated in the early stage. So we're ready now. We're ready. It is, I'm going to remain Jamaican and I'm going to say it's a joke. But I hear everybody take on the American style about jab. Anyway, it is a single injection you're getting into your upper arm. We're using a nice itsy bitsy teeny weeny needle. I'm not going to tell you that it don't hurt, but it's still a small needle. And you're going to get 2 doses. You're going to get 1 dose whenever, and you're going to get the other dose 8 to 12 weeks after the first dose. That's not so hard. Easy. So we come to the beginning now. Side effects. What are the side effects? And this is specific to who? AstraZeneca, which is the vaccine we have here in country. Okay. So very, very common, which is greater than 1 in 10 persons will have tenderness, pain, warmth, redness, itching, swelling, or bruising where they get injection. They'll feel generally unwell, very tired. They can get chills. They can get nausea, some joint and muscle pain. And then you have some common side effects now, where it happens 1 in 10 persons. These persons can get a lump at the injection site, they can get fever, vomiting, flu-like illness. And then you have another set that happens in about 1 in 100 persons, where they feel dizzy, they get decreased appetite, abdominal pain, enlarged lymph nodes, wax and canal all over the body, excessive sweating, itching of the skin, and a rash. Now, these symptoms usually last for 24 to 48 hours. If you are way unfortunate, it lasts for 72 hours. Now, nobody likes to feel like this, but guess what? This is actually a good thing. This is telling us that our bodies have recognized the intelligence, the vaccine, and it has taken the appropriate picture and begin to make the antibodies. So it's a little inconvenience to feel like this, but it's actually telling us that our bodies are doing the right thing. So who we vaccinating? We're vaccinating everybody over 18, not yet locally, not in the phase. Persons 60 years and older with comorbid conditions. If you're obese, yes, you must come. If you have any cardiovascular disease, hypertension, myocardial infarction, you did get heart attack one time, yes, you must come. You have respiratory disease, so you have asthma, you have emphysema, you have bronchitis. Yes, you must come. You have sugar. Yes, you must get the vaccine. All right. The vaccine is also being offered to pregnant and lactating healthcare workers. They're going to ask me why healthcare workers, and that is because of their level of exposure. And it is also known that persons who are pregnant tend to do much worse if they contract the disease, and also they tend to have premature babies. So that's wholly a reason why they should take the vaccine. Now, we don't know a lot about the vaccine in pregnant women or lactating women, but what we do know is that the AstraZeneca viral vector vaccine does not cross the placenta and it does not get into the breast. So the capacity to harm the fetus or the young baby is nil. And therefore, when you look at that evidence, as opposed to the detrimental effects that can happen to the pregnant woman, the scale is tipped in favor of giving her the vaccine. If you have HIV, if you're immunocompromised, if you have autoimmune disease, if you have recovered from disease, you did have COVID and you get better, yes, you are to get the vaccine. Now, if you have been given antibodies, and again, if you're following the world, they would have heard that even last couple of months ago here in Jamaica, the University of the West Indies were asking for people who had the illness, if they could give blood so that they could get the antibodies to administer to people who are ill. So if you have received antibody treatment, then you have to wait 90 days before you get the vaccine. So who not to get it? Because I tell you, almost everybody can get it. But who is not to get it are persons who have an acute allergy to any component of the vaccine, or if you have had or will have or going to have or you do have an anaphylactic or severe reaction to the first dose. So, we are possibly under the very good impression that vaccines will help to put the scale in the right balance, where we'll have healthy persons who are able to socialize, who have a work, who can go to church, participate in sports, travel, and get some level of what is considered normal. So we are in Jamaica on the road to recovery. We are on the road to recovery. It's slow, it's gonna take some time, but we have started. So our vaccines, the AstraZeneca vaccine arrived in country on the 8th of March. And on Wednesday, the 10th of March, we started to vaccinate primarily our healthcare workers. Remember, we said healthcare worker first, most vulnerable. So we had some targets set for each day, the 10th, the 11th, and the 12th. And we said that over that 3-day period, we wanted to vaccinate 10,200 persons. Well, we never looked too bad at all. We managed to vaccinate 10,222. So we got over by a bit. So we have begun our vaccination process in country. We're doing relatively okay, relatively okay. And we will be continuing with our healthcare workers, persons in the JDF, persons in the JCF, and in a timely manner, continue to roll out the vaccination plan. All right, so ladies and gentlemen, I hope I have been able to dispel some of the myths. I hope we are less hesitant to take the vaccine. And I want to thank you also very much for listening. And I'm going to hand over now back to our chair. Thank you so much, everyone.
All right, thank you very much, Dr. Ennis, for a loaded presentation. I'm sure that you gave us quite a mouthful, and we're heading now to the best part, the question and answers. We have been monitoring the chat, and we also recognize that some persons that they have raised their hands. And so At this time, we are going to be allowing persons to ask your questions, and also Mrs. Richards and Mrs. O'Connor Guy, they are going to be posing some questions that they collected in the chat. So I'm going to now open up for for questions, and also we are going to be asking some questions that was posed in the chat. Please, I think we have 99 plus questions in the chat, so there's no way we can cover everything, but as best as possible, we are going to try to see how we can answer as much of your questions as possible. So I'm going to just turn over to those two persons that have been monitoring the chat to pose the questions to Dr. Ennis.
Me get in, sir.
Good afternoon, Dr. Ellis. Good afternoon, everybody on the platform. All right.
Open. Where there?
I would have thought you would have.
As we get the questions together, I have noted one question in the chat, and it's the most current of what is happening with the AstraZeneca vaccine. And the question is from Candice Fowler Booth, and I am being asked to address the issue of alleged deaths arising from blood clots post AstraZeneca vaccine. So that news hit our airwaves, I believe, on Thursday and caused some amount of discomfort among persons. Now, 50 persons out of 5 million persons who received the vaccine, AstraZeneca developed a blood clot and apparently died. The investigations so far has shown that the incidence of death from blood clots, when you compare it in the population, was no different. It was actually significantly less. And the evidence and the report out of the Strategic Advisory Group, having done their investigation, has said, and that article was posted just below the one that's about the blood clot. That article has refuted and has said that there is no link between getting the AstraZeneca vaccine and persons dying from a DVT or a clot that has moved to the lungs. So that is not a cause and relation illness at all.
Okay.
Okay, I continue to await how you go through the chat, but let me see if I can help.
All right, doctor. We have one here.
Go
There,
ahead.
there have there have doctors been there have doctors who have worked intimately with the creation of vaccines, and they're telling us of its dangers. So how does these doctors in Jamaica that have never worked toxic agents speak. So matter of fact, when so many other doctors say otherwise, not so very clear on what they want to really have to.
Well, I'm not sure how I'm to answer that question, but there are always differences in opinions, and opinions need to be verified. We can all have an opinion on many things, but that does not make our opinion correct. We need to, as scientists, of persons who can critically think and analyze and assess things, we need to look at the facts. There are persons who will tell us that this is a particular color, and you are looking at it and you are seeing that it's not. And they can convince you that it is that color. But what are you going to do? You're going to critically assess the situation and make a decision on your own. So persons can have many opinions, whether they are intimately involved in the process as opposed to if they are not. What is important is the facts that support the utterance or utterances of persons, the facts. That's what we need to look at. And Eliza Chang is asking, how can we get seniors registered? The registration process for seniors will commence in short order, and persons will be advised from the national level how that is to take place. You will be advised. Please just continue to be patient. I spoke to the blood clotting issue already. Somebody's asking that same thing, if we're going to be taking Pfizer and other vaccines. Good evening. Why are some of the vaccines more costly than others in terms of brands? They are costly because different manufacturers set their costs based on their overhead and of course on market value. So depending on person's business model, they set their prices. I'm not sure if there's going to be an option for you to work from home if you don't desire to take the vaccine. That is not a real medical question. That's a policy question. I cannot speak to that at this time. Once vaccinated, can one still catch the virus? Yes, you can. But why are we taking the vaccines? We are taking the vaccines because they prevent severe illness, they prevent hospitalization and death. Now, transmissibility was not studied at the time because what was urgent was those three things that I just mentioned. So if you take the vaccine, you can get the virus, but you won't get very ill. Chances are you won't be hospitalized and you won't die. And that is why it is important for many of us, if not all of us, to take the vaccine so that the virus won't go from me to you and cause anything. Over time, the virus won't be able to spread among the population if we are vaccinated. And that is why after getting the vaccine, we also need to wear our masks until enough of us are inoculated. Can you speak to the issue of effectiveness of AstraZeneca in the elderly in particular? Well, the vaccine boasts a 62 to 70% efficacy if it is given 1 to 4 weeks. If it's given day one and then 4 weeks after. It has been noted that the dosing schedule, if the dosing schedule is changed and it is given day one and then 8 to 12 weeks after, the efficacy moves up to 90%. In the elderly in particular, it has been shown to prevent severe illness and death. Actually, in the phase 3 studies for AstraZeneca, they didn't have anybody dying. So that is the evidence that we are working with at this time, that it is efficacious in the older population. Vaccine hesitancy is a real concern among healthcare workers. Absolutely, it is. There are questions raised about the ingredients in AstraZeneca. Of course, let's go through them. A communication was sent out that persons would not take the vaccine if they're allergic to any of the ingredients. That is correct as well. Based on the ingredients listed in the vaccine, are there any particular ingredient that might be known to cause some adverse implications among a risk group? Okay, so the one thing that stands out in the AstraZeneca vaccine is polysorbate. Now, and I think it's polysorbate 80 that is in it. Now, there are some components of other vaccines that may cross-react with this polysorbate. So for example, the Pfizer vaccine has in what is called polyethylene glycol, and it is believed that polyethylene glycol may interact with the polysorbate to cause an allergic reaction. However, the vaccines are not interchangeable. So if you begin your vaccine series with AstraZeneca, you're going to complete it with AstraZeneca. We're not crossing the vaccines at all. So that particular challenge should not be a problem. I want to travel. So this person is saying, good evening, I have a concern. I want to travel out and go visit my family. And I am trying to know if I get the Johnson & Johnson vaccine in the US, which is a one-dose, don't move up so fast, I'm reading, which is a one-dose vaccine. Do I need to come back and quarantine? If yes, why? I really want to come back and start work because it will cost me 14 days. Okay. So yes, the protocol and policy still remains that persons will need to quarantine as soon as an assessment of the spread of the disease is made, then possibly that will change, but yes, you will have to quarantine. And the reason why is that you are protected, but you can transmit to someone who is not protected. And we don't want that to happen. Does messenger RNA technology includes genetic coding? Which other vaccine uses this mRNA method? Well, I gather if you mean genetic coding to mean genetic sequencing, then yes, it uses a sequence of the genetic material to form the vaccine. And the Pfizer vaccine and the Moderna vaccine uses this method of creation. How many vaccines have been manufactured using a similar process as the COVID-19 vaccines? Well, the messenger RNA technology is new. And when I say new, I mean it's been 10 years in the making. So the messenger RNA platform has been in the process of making for the past 10 years. The adenoviral vector, which is the AstraZeneca, that has been around. The Ebola virus, the Ebola vaccine uses said technology. So that has been around. The AstraZeneca, oh, don't go so fast, you're going up too fast. Go back down a bit so I can read that one. It started out by saying something about efficacy and 60%, and I didn't get to read the rest of it. I can only assume that you're saying that AstraZeneca has but maybe I'd like to see the question before. How would the average Joe know what component he may be allergic to prior to being vaccinated? Well, the average Joe won't know if they're allergic to any of the specific components of the vaccine unless they have had a similar, had an allergy before, and that was known. So for us really is to administer the vaccine and take all the necessary precautions, which is what is done in all of our facilities where the vaccines are being offered. So we are prepared to manage an allergic reaction if it occurs. All persons who don't give a history of allergic reactions are monitored for about 15 minutes. If you do give a history of having an allergy, you don't know if you might be allergic to this, then you are monitored for a longer period of time, 30 minutes. And 30 minutes is not drawn out of the hat. It really is the time it takes for persons who have an allergic reaction once their cells have been previously sensitized for them to begin to show symptoms. Okay, so if you are going to show symptoms of an severe allergic reaction, it is more likely going to happen within the first 30 minutes of receiving a medication. The vaccines are not mandatory. So persons are asking, if you refuse to take the vaccine, will I still be able to work or will I lose my job? The vaccines are not mandatory. Is the vaccine safe for asthmatics? Yes, it is. Good evening. Your PowerPoint showed human embryonic cell as part of the ingredient. It showed that genetically modified, that's what it said, genetically modified human embryonic cells. Yes, it did say that. And the explanation for that is that those genetically modified cells include or are cells that were cloned. So it is not any embryonic tissue. It is a clone from the embryonic tissue that is used to make this vaccine. Is the vaccine safe for persons with lupus? Yes, it is safe for persons who have lupus. If you are on IV immunosuppressant therapy and you have received your injection today, the advice is that you do not get the vaccine until at least 14 days after that. But once you're not on that kind of therapy and you have lupus, then yes, you can take the vaccine. Is there an option to wait for Pfizer or Johnson & Johnson vaccine? Well, the vaccine is not mandatory. So you have that right if you wish to wait, but we should be mindful that vaccines are going into countries based on supply and demand. And believe it or not, the demand for these vaccines are much, much more than what is being supplied. And as we well know here in Jamaica, that a bird in the hand is better than two in the bush. We do not know if we are going to get Pfizer or if we are going to get Johnson & Johnson. We are in dialogue to get, but we don't know if we will get. What we do have at this time and what we're offering to our healthcare workers at this time is AstraZeneca.
Doc?
Yes.
Someone is asking if a person has one kidney and is immunocompromised, if this vaccine is recommended. I just figure I would say it for this person because they are saying it's the third time that they are asking that question.
So, for persons
who
I hear you. I hear you.
Okay.
And I'm saying for persons who have these underlying conditions, it is these persons that do worse when they get COVID. So yes, the vaccine is recommended. The caveat, however, is that we know that you will not mount the same response as someone with a competent immune system. But the belief is that it is better to mount some response, which you will mount, than to mount no response at all if you do not take the vaccine. So if you are well, your white cell is not down in the boots and you're not frail, you're living your life with your sole kidney on medication and you are well, then yes, you are to be vaccinated. And the question about chemotherapy, the question about cancer patients, all of those questions with those persons who are very ill is taken on an individual basis. So again, if you are well with your illness, well controlled, then yes, you can take the vaccine. If you are frail and you are now in hospital and you are praying a lot to stay alive, no, we're not going to give you the vaccine. So it's on an individual basis. And somebody in the chat asked about comorbid conditions. Why are they asking if you have comorbid conditions? Because actually, it is persons with comorbid conditions that we're vaccinating first. It is those persons who are most at risk, and these are the persons we are giving the vaccine to first. So yes, we're asking, and we use your comorbid conditions to be able to stratify you when we're going to give you an appointment, because those with the most vulnerabilities will be offered the vaccines first. I live in Portmore and over 60. Where do I go? You go nowhere at this time. You are going to wait until the platform for registration to get the vaccine is made available. So once you are told, and you will be told, that is when you proceed to attempt to go somewhere. For now, it's nowhere. The vaccine is not given to children because the clinical trials were not conducted on children. Actually, clinical trials are not conducted on children until the medication has gone out into the general population and millions of persons have received it before trials begin on children. And therefore, we are not offering it to persons below the age of 18. And the answer to that question, I'd like to know which other vaccine developed before 2019 uses the messenger RNA platform, and the answer to that is none, as far as I'm aware. What if the phobia for needles? Wow, you're going so fast. Somebody was asking something about phobia, but the chat went by me so fast, I didn't even see what that was.
All you have to do is just scroll
I'm
up.
scrolling.
Okay.
Members
It says, what if you have, doctor?
Yes, go ahead.
What if you have a phobia for needles?
What if you have a phobia for needles?
That was the question. What if you have a what if you have a phobia for needles and have anemia?
Well, if you have anemia, you can take the vaccine. There's no contraindication if you're anemic to taking the vaccine. If you have a phobia for needles, then you will have to get some assistance in controlling your fear. We believe that persons at the injection site will allay your fears and they will coax you and comfort you and distract you so that you
Tell them
won't
shut
see
their
the
eye and
needle.
sing that.
That was that's good night, doc. Good night.
Good night.
Okay. Go ahead with your question, please. Hello, go ahead.
Doc?
Yes.
Somebody's asking if the vaccines will be mandatory.
And the answer to that is no. The Vaccines
No.
are not mandatory.
Good
I'm just
night.
getting on, so I'm listening in.
Good
That's
night,
fine.
Doc. That
Hi.
question about the phobia for needles, that one was for me. I have terrible phobias. I cannot see it, else I'll go crazy. So when you're saying just distract is not that easy because I
Okay.
have gotten injection in the past and I could not walk for a week,
Okay.
literally a week, and that is a scar on me from a
Uh-huh.
child coming up.
Okay. So maybe have you tried being blindfolded? Have you tried
That
that?
that won't work because I will be anticipating it, so it's kind of hard.
Wow. So what have you done to be able to take injections? What have you done?
I don't. So that is the scary part. I
So you
don't.
have never had an injection since your childhood experience?
About two, and it was as I say, hold on. But apart from that,
Well, you are special and you would have to be treated as such. So we're not going to really hold you down, but you would have to be treated as a special case. I can't prescribe on this platform, what could be done, but there are persons with severe phobias that do have to take injections to save their lives, and we have managed to work around that. So you just really
be
need at your
contacted
site.
to know the method, because I mean, if it's just to go and take it like that, that would be a no for me. I will not go and sit because I cannot see it, else I'll just go crazy.
Okay, understood. So you need to have a discussion. Are you a healthcare provider? You're a
No,
healthcare,
I'm a teacher.
or you're a teacher. All right.
Yeah.
So when we begin to inoculate teachers, you are going to have that discussion with the healthcare provider assigned to that site. That is
Oh.
prior to the day when you're going to take it. You have to have
Hey.
that discussion before. Okay. So
All
once that
right.
worked out, and then we'll try and sort you out.
Okay, ma'am.
Mhm.
Yes, good evening, Doc.
Hi.
Yeah, all right. I was asked, I saw it in the chat as well. What if
Mhm.
you're allergic to penicillin? How
If
would
you
that
are
be treated?
if you are allergic to penicillin, you can still get the vaccine. There is no component of penicillin that is in the vaccine that you could be allergic to. So yes, you can.
All right, thank you very much.
You're welcome. It says, can a person actually die after vaccination? Well, Lady Beulah, a person can die after anything. So I gather that is a yes, because we can die after anything. But we now have to look at the probability of persons dying after getting the vaccine. And we have 70 million people, and we have in the world, and we have 10,000 in Jamaica, and they're still alive. So what is the probability of you dying, or any one of us dying after the vaccine? But yes, we can actually die after anything. Will sickle cell?
Hello, good night.
From the vaccine, Doc?
Yes. Pardon me?
Doctor, from you can die from the vaccine itself? Because I've heard of cases overseas.
Well, I don't know that you can die of the vaccine.
And saw circulation in social
die
media.
Right. So lots of things that. And we have to realize that people are dying from many things every day. And some things are simply coincidental. Some things are. And until we can prove cause and effect, we are not to say that is this kill me and that kill me. A lot of persons are dying. And if you listen to how we classify even the COVID deaths here in the country, you have COVID, motor car can lick you and kill you. It's not the COVID kill you, it's the motor vehicle. But you have the COVID. So you can get the vaccine, you can have something else that causes you to die, but we have to verify the cause and effect before we can say that is the vaccine that kill you. But the possibility exists because anything can kill you. So yes, it can happen, but we don't just say, is the vaccine kill you the day after you take it? We have to look at all what we call possible confounding factors. We have to make an assessment.
Hello, good night, doctor.
Hi.
Good evening, doctor.
I want
Hello,
to
good
find
evening.
Good evening.
I have a question to ask you. People who are over 70 are taking the medication for diabetes and hypertension. Will the vaccine react to those medications?
No, ma'am, they won't.
Taking the vaccination, will it react to the medicine?
No, it won't. No.
Will it react to those medications?
No.
Like medicines for hypertension and no? Oh,
No.
okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Hi, Doc.
Good evening.
Yes, just want to ask you a quick question pertaining to those cases with blood clotting overseas. Would it be safe for individuals to take, for example, an elderly person that's on blood thinner, to take like an aspirin before taking the vaccine? Would that be safe?
Persons who are on their routine medication, they are to continue taking their medication. So if you take a daily dose of something, then you are to continue taking it.
Okay, so the blood thinner would be safe then.
The blood thinner have
Yes.
other
For example,
precautions that you need to take if you're on a blood thinner.
Okay.
What blood thinners do is that it makes you bleed. So of course, if you're on a blood thinner, when you get your injection, you're going to have added compression at the site. You're going to be monitoring if persons are bleeding under the skin. That is why we ask these questions, because it helps us in our observation and what we do after that. Because we know if you're on a blood thinner, you won't clot so easily, so you tend to bleed a little bit more. So we have to apply more pressure to the injection site, etc.
Okay, thank you very much.
Welcome.
Good evening. Hello.
Listening.
Hello, Doc.
Doctor, aren't the vaccine supposed to be made within 7 years?
Different vaccines that use different platforms for manufacture takes different lengths of time to be developed. There is no prescribed time that you need to take 7, 10, 12 years. It's an average of the method that is used to make the vaccine. So depending on what you're using, then it takes a particular time. And as we begin to use different methods for the make of vaccines, then the time taken to manufacture them has changed and will continue to change.
Doc. Okay, thank you.
Welcome very much.
Doc?
Yes.
I'd like to know, I don't know if anybody has asked already because I got on late.
Okay.
If you take the vaccine, does that mean that you will not stand at the risk of getting COVID? You wouldn't get COVID. Will it protect you against the COVID? Is that
the vaccine?
How guaranteed is that?
The vaccine protects you from severe illness, possible hospitalization, and possible death from COVID-19. That's what the vaccines protect you against.
Okay, good evening, Doc.
Hi.
Yes, tell me something, just 2 quick questions. Do you think it is a wise idea for like the elderly who is locked up for 1 year now from being protected from COVID-19? They're locked up, they're not getting any fresh air, they're not getting any sunlight, and they're not getting any exercise nor socializing with other people. And so hence that can affect both their mental health and their immune system. Now, in my mind, I think someone to get a vaccine shot, since they're being exposed to a little portion of the vaccine, they need good immune system to fight off that, to build up that immunity. So I'm thinking for elderly people to be targeted, to be given this vaccine when they have not gotten any sunlight to increase their vitamin D level, no fresh air to get oxygen in the blood, no exercise. I'm thinking that their immune system is now dead to be exposed to that. That's one. The other thing is, do you think that this is a responsible vaccine? I hear you answering the person telling them that there's no specified time on any vaccine. No, in my mind, I don't think we should be jumping up and down and saying hooray because somebody take it and they don't dead yet. Give it a 6 months to a year or two to see what happens. We don't know if 6 months down the road, people are going to drop dead like fly. We can say, oh, the vaccine is so effective because 2 weeks from now, a month from now, people are still living. That's not, I don't think that's a responsible type of vaccine. I think we should give it time. And I don't buy the argument that because we have new technology, it is being made more whatever. This is the first we're doing it this way. And that's why we shouldn't say anything so quick. We shouldn't be so quick to say it is working because we cannot say. We have to give it time to say it is effective and we're seeing that and that. Furthermore, the news are being falsified, and that's a reality. The news are being falsified, and that's a reality. But I want you to address mainly the fact that we're exposing our old people whose immune system has gone down within a year to the vaccine, and two, the fact that I think this is an irresponsible way that we're not giving it sufficient time. That is my problem. We need sufficient time because next 2 years we cannot sue the vaccine makers, you know? We cannot sue them. And so when we have autoimmune diseases could develop and other things, nobody gonna say it's the vaccine cause it. They're gonna say it's other things, and it could very much be the vaccine. Thank you.
Thank you for.
Good evening, doctor.
Dr. Ennis?
Let me try and answer the thoughts that were posited. Is that okay with the team?
Yes, because somebody just muted me.
I am. Yes, somebody's calling me.
I'm sorry.
Yes.
Before you take, after you have answered this question.
Yes, please.
There is a Mr. Delroy Burley who has had his hand up for maybe half an hour now. Okay. He's on the raise hand feature. I'd like for us to acknowledge him, please.
Please, you can go ahead right after I attempt to posit some comments based on what was placed on the table. Okay. Now, I am going to start with 6 months and a year. Please recall that for these vaccines, phase 1 trials would have started over a year ago. Phase 2 trials as well. So persons have received the vaccine that have lived for over 6 months to a year. So we just need to be reading credible material and following the evidence. Now, there are new ways of doing things, and there is always resistance because persons are afraid of what is unsure. And the only thing that can overcome that in their own minds, and different ones of us are at different stages of accepting change and difference. And we know that. So some persons, it takes a longer time for them to appreciate change and something that is different. Others, it can happen quickly. All I am asking of persons on this platform and everywhere else is that we are to open our minds to reason and credible information. If we have an opinion and we are so rooted in our opinion that it matters not what anything or anyone says, then we have to come to our own acknowledgement over time. There is nothing I can say to you if you are so convinced that something is not right that will make you change your mind. I can only reach the persons who want credible information to make a decision. If you have already made up your mind and you are standing firm in your decision, then there is nothing I can say or anybody can say to move you. So I'm going to end on that, and I'm going to try and speak to the older persons. Now, it is really unfortunate if older persons over the past year have not received any sunshine, have not exercised, have not socially even spoken to their relatives. Those persons are indeed sad, and I can't even fathom that persons in an infirmary or a nursing home are under those conditions, because we continue to encourage all of our older persons that they need to still move around in their homes. They still need to come outside and get a little sunshine. They don't need to be in contact with persons for those things to happen. So, that's an area that really, if there is a multitude of persons in that situation, then that's very sad, unfortunate, and really needs to be addressed. I do concur that the lockdown has been having a tremendous negative mental effect on our older population. That is indeed correct. And we've got to get out of that. And one of the ways of getting out of that is to vaccinate these persons. And that is why the vaccine is being offered to them. When you look at the balance, the risk, and the benefits, then the benefits tend to outweigh the risks. So persons who may be immunocompromised, they may not mount the same response as a competent person, but they are going to mount some response. And it is better to mount some response that is protective than to not mount any response at all. So when you look at all of that, the scale is being tipped into vaccinating older persons. Chair, you wanted to take a hand? Please go ahead.
Good evening, Dr. Ennis, and
Good evening, sir.
I want to thank you for the presentation. I think it was very informative. I have two questions I want to ask. One is on behalf of a friend, and the second one is I want to ask is on behalf of myself. The first question is, my friend is concerned that if he takes a vaccine, that it will affect his erection. And the second question is, that I want to ask, if I were to take the vaccine and I only experience a slight muscle ache at the very spot where I got the joke, what does that say about my immune system?
Well, let me take the second one. It says that your immune system is working. You still are mounting some sort of response. Some persons don't have to mount the full florid response that we spoke to. Some persons don't, but they still develop antibodies. So that can happen. But the vast majority of persons will recognize that they got something, even if it is very mild. With regards to the erection, I don't believe, and not in my readings, have I come across persons becoming impotent who were on the phase 1 to 3 trials. I have not read that. But if anyone has found any article that speaks to this, I will give it a read.
Doc?
Yes, yes.
Good evening. I think that you did a wonderful job in your presentation this evening. In support of some of the things that you're saying, I would want the participant to remember that there was a whole lot of other companies that were trying vaccines, and many of them did not make it to the end. They were not successful in phase 1 or phase 2 or even get to phase 3 trials. So obviously it's not, they're not opening the floodgate to allow any vaccine to just run about. And I think one of the hesitancy that we're having is because the death rate from COVID-19 is not as aggressive as some of the other diseases that we probably had in the past. If it was like one of those diseases that we had 100 years ago and the death rate was say 50% or 70%, most persons would not be hesitant about this vaccine. And in my opinion, these vaccines that are being developed now, we have more information on them than any of the other vaccines that almost all of us on this platform have taken. Because when they were developing polio and all of those, we did not have the social media. We did not know what was happening, and we all took them without asking any questions.
Amen, amen, amen.
I want to thank you for that perspective. Most appreciated. I want to just add one twist to what you said. And it is that the coronavirus, the family of coronaviruses, have not been, they're not new. They've been around for years.
Right.
Remember, we had MERS and SARS.
And SARS. And they were doing the work before.
Exactly.
They were working on SARS.
Absolutely. Scientists were working on vaccines for over 10 years. But now everybody got money to finish what they started. They had the scientists to come together. Where can we recall in history where scientists across borders were able to pool their ideas together? That never happened, because if you're in one country and you have your country rights and you can't share information, all of those barriers were broken down. And
the sequencing came out of China so fast.
Absolutely.
We didn't have that technology 20, 30 years ago to do the sequencing. And maybe some persons may not recognize what we mean by sequencing, but that tells you the genetic nature of the organism that you're dealing with, so that you can start your work to develop a solution to it. We didn't have those technologies here before. So it would have taken a whole lot of time to develop these vaccines. Things are changing rapidly. We're living in a different world now.
Different world. But when you look at the variants now, and that brings us to the point of variants. Nobody asked about that as yet. But when you get to that point now these ways of making the vaccines is going to make it so much easier for us to address the variants, because all it takes is a sequence. Yep. Before, it would take us getting the virus, purifying it. It would take us the 7 or 10 years that everybody's talking about. It's a different platform now that requires simple sequencing and placing it into a vector, placing it into some fat and getting it into our bodies. Totally different. So, as I said, all of us, and I can only encourage us to read more, read credible information. Social media is not necessarily credible. Nope. Social media are lots of opinions, and
thank you.
Verified.
It's not doctor, yes.
Huh? A lot of opinion is there.
Yes. Doctor, may I just jump in here? I know I'm supposed to use my hand, but I just want to support the gentleman on Galaxy 812. I'm in education, and just to see how many of our children are suffering as a result of this virus, and how many families are being affected because no money coming in, all kinds of things. And I know as Christians, we have been praying for a breakthrough. And I think we need to embrace this. I'm going to call it a breakthrough from heaven. We need to embrace this vaccine. I am one who hates the jab. I hate it. I'm going to do a blood test this week, and I'm almost like 13 already. But guess what? If I were called upon when that vaccine came to the airport to take that jab, I would jump gladly to take that jab. All right? Because I want our children, I want our nation to come back. And if this is answered to prayer, let's all embrace it. Doc, thank you very much for your presentation.
You're welcome. Tamara.
Dr. Ennis, good evening. Good evening, Dr. Ennis.
Hi.
Hello.
Yes, I'm here.
Yes, Dr. Ennis, thanks again. Thank you. You always do a good job. What are the severe reactions that would warrant somebody not to get the second injection?
Anaphylactic reaction.
which is a severe allergic reaction where your organs essentially shut down. So the ones we recognize first is the respiratory system. So we have difficulty breathing. There is angioedema, swelling of the tongue, swelling of the tonsils.
Okay, all right. I have had the vaccine already, and I have had all the named reactions, but not for more than 24 hours. So I just wondered. Thank you very much.
Okay, right. So you felt like a truck hit you, they say, and you felt fatigue and muscle ache.
No.
No,
It's not as bad as a truck hitting.
Okay,
It's not as bad as a truck hitting anybody.
Okay.
Right? I'm over it. I got it Thursday and I'm over it.
Good night, doctor.
Good night, Tanisha.
How's the final? As the lady was saying about the side effects, what are the side effects and how long, like the fever for after it, how long it lasts?
It usually lasts 24 to 48 hours. That's 2 days. And on some rare occasions, it may last for 3 days, 72 hours. But 24 to 48 hours is the usual time that the side effect lasts. Miss Tamara Carter, I see your hand up for a little while. Can you go ahead?
Good evening, doctor. With the news and the news are probably speculation about the effects of with the blood clot with this brand of injection, right? A vaccine. Personally, my dad has 3 strokes and he has multiple blood clots to his brain. Would you advise him taking the vaccine? He's isolated from public since March of last year. Vaccine?
I could not make that determination by what you have just said. I would really have to be seeing and examining that patient and making a medical assessment before I could give such an answer, because your father clearly has complications, and I would need to assess his clinical status at the time when I'm offering him the vaccine, and then make a decision at that point.
So you suggest I take him to a doctor because he has done his what do you call it, the brain scan, and that's what it showed last year this time.
Okay.
That he had 3 blood clots, multiple blood clots to the brain, and he was suffering his 3rd stroke that led to the brain scan.
Okay, so he is definitely a candidate that would have to be individualized. All right.
Okay, then. Thanks much.
You're welcome much. You Jackson Forrester, I see your hand up as well. Okay. All right.
Okay, Doc, just to follow up on what you said about credible information, could you tell me then, direct me to where is credible information? Let me tell you why I asked you. I've seen many other doctors all over the world who are saying opposite to what you are saying about the vaccine. They are saying that this mRNA that is in it is the first ever, and they're trying it on people first before trying it on animals. They're saying that it has this deadly effect and it will affect our cells and our DNA. And so they are real doctors. I don't know what their motive would be for telling us all of what they're telling us. And they're doctors all over the world. What would make me believe you over them or them over you? Who is the credible? Who determines who is being credible and what is fake and what is not fake? Who is the determinant of what is credibility?
Are you sure they are real doctors?
They are real doctors. From my investigation, they're all real doctors. Some of them we used to work for the CDC, and some of them you have been in the vaccine industry for years.
Doctors of medicine are PhD.
No, I'm not talking about PhD, medical doctors, and some of them specialize in the area of vaccination.
All I can say,
where and who should I determine to be that is credible?
All I can say to you, my dear, is that the information that I have presented to you, I can provide you with my evidence. I can provide you with my meta-analyses from journal reviews, from peer review. I can provide you with that information. You don't have to believe. You do not have to believe. You do not have to believe. Ma'am, really, The choice is yours. It is your life. You have the right to decide whether you are, it is a personal decision. Now, your opinion should not influence others. It is your opinion. So you choose who you want to believe, and you choose if you want to take the vaccine. It's your choice, miss. It's your choice.
I just don't think the vaccine is the solution, because that means we're going to be vaccinating ourselves forever and ever. Every sickness comes up. We just need to build our immunity and focus on having good health. That is just my opinion. And the facts have shown that even stronger
to you,
immunity
Doc.
facts have shown that
Hello?
strong immunity can resist those things.
Hello.
I appreciate
Good
your
night.
opinion, miss, and it is your opinion. Thank you so much for sharing it.
Good night, Doc.
Hi.
I want to thank you very much for your presentation, and you answered a lot of my questions. And I thank you very, very much. For that lady, she has made up her mind not to take it. So I don't think that she should discourage persons for if they want to take it. Everybody have a choice. God, that is one thing God allow us to do. Have us to make choices. So her choices is not to take the vaccine. She just have to just relax herself. Thank you very much.
Good night.
Question, please. That's one
Hello,
question.
good night.
Yeah, that's one question. That if you have asthma,
I
you take
don't
it. Hello? Yeah, that.
So we have to maintain some amount of order so we can hear what each other is saying. All right.
Yes, Doc. Good night.
Good night, my dear.
If you have asthma and you're taking the vaccine, it won't affect the asthma.
No, it won't affect your asthma.
All right. Thank you very much.
Should take the vaccine.
Good evening again, Dr. Ennis. I just started to speak with me and I was interrupted.
My apologies. Please go ahead. Right?
No, interrupt you. Sorry.
All right, okay, guys.
The first question I'd like to ask, well, I know it's all new, but will this be a vaccination that persons will have to take yearly, like the flu vaccine? That is one. And the second thing, will persons with sickle cell anemia be in the first group of persons for vaccination?
Okay, so if you have a comorbid condition, which is sickle cell is one, and you are in the age group of persons, because we're doing the elderly first. So if you fall in that age group, then you will be in the first phase of vaccination. If you fall outside of that group, you have to wait until we get to you. But we're getting to everybody slowly but surely. We're going to get to everybody. And your other question, my goodness, it slipped me. What was the other one?
The other one was, will this be an annual injection or it's a one-off treatment? I know it's all new, but just what are the odds?
All right, so the evidence is not complete as yet. There have been some studies now that is going on out of China and Italy, and it is looking like nothing concrete yet. It's just looking like we might have to take it on an annual basis, but there's nothing for sure as yet. All we know now is that for the ones that are offering 2 doses, that's what you need. And for the Johnson & Johnson, you only need 1 dose at this time. That's all we know now.
Hello, can I ask a question, please?
Sure.
I'd like to know if you're on medication for depression, can you take the vaccine?
Yes, if you're on medication for depression, you should be able to take the vaccine. I'm thinking and rolling it over if I've seen any contraindications. No.
Thank
I've
you.
not seen any.
Good night. Can I go next?
No, hold on for me, please, Dr. Ennis.
Yes, miss.
Yes, we have some persons here in the raise hand feature that we would love for you to acknowledge, about 9 of them. 10. So I'm going to ask if you could please acknowledge those persons. And I'm just going to ask the participant to speak one at a time, please, so that we can have it using the raise hand feature.
All right, so we start off with Tanisha. Tanisha, have you asked your question?
Tanisha, please unmute your mic. And the others following, please. Thank you.
Okay, Gillespie, you can go ahead, please.
Okay, good night, doctor. I must first of all say you did an excellent presentation.
Thank you much.
As it relates to the different information that has been publicized over the media and all of that, I know that some of the information, might not be credible. All right, but as human beings, we have heard all of these things, and it does something to us. Right? It does something to us mentally when we hear of persons dying, as a result of taking the vaccine or persons getting sick. And so it allows us now to wonder, should we take the medication or should we not take the medication? I know most of us, we are for life. We really want to live there, and most of us, we feel threatened. Our lives feel threatened because of this virus. I'm sure most of us would want to be alive, and if this vaccine is really, good, we'll all want to partake of it. But I think the uncertainty looms over us, where we hear of the negative things that have been happening to persons who have taken the vaccine. So personally, I've opted uncertain. I'm undecided because I was asked to fill out a form recently. I said I'm undecided. Now the other thing that I would like to find out, doctor, what procedure will be taken, because some of us, we have underlying sicknesses that we don't even know. Upon taking this vaccine, will any procedure be done to ascertain if your body is compatible with the ingredients of this vaccine?
So I can start with your second question. There is no vaccine ever that is given to anybody in the world where there are tests done for compatibility. Actually, there's very few medications, if any, that is administered in such a way. You have hypertension and you are prescribed a medication. There is no test that is done to see if it is compatible with your body. So you get the medication and you may get a reaction. And if you get a reaction to that hypertensive medication, it is changed. You get something else. So it is not the custom in medicine to do that. And this vaccine, these new medications are not going against that culture in medicine. So that's not happening. That's that. Now, all persons have a right to question things. We all have a right to be skeptical. But we also have the capacity to analyze, assess, and see what is happening. So 70 million persons have received the vaccine. Ladies and gentlemen, you know people who have received the vaccine. Are they dropping? Is 70 million persons dead? We've got to look at the facts. People die every day from lots of things. Whether they take the vaccine or not, we are going dead. So, I mean, we've got to get a grip on what we're hearing, what we're hearing and how it matches up with what is actually happening. And I'm not here to convince anybody to take or not to take the vaccine. I am only here to provide the facts, okay? But we in ourselves have to distill the information. And if something is staring you in the face, that it is not causing any harm, you see people walking around, you see people not dropping down dead, they're not growing any extra hand and foot, they don't have hair sticking out of their eyes, you are seeing it, then why would I opt to believe something that I hear? And it really is up to us to distill the information. Dominic Jarrett, you want to go ahead, please?
Yes, it's Dr. Ennis, right?
So them say, yes, sir.
Uh, all right, Dr. Ennis, I'm a double science major at CTC, and there are many others like us up here. We've been, a lot of our assignments have been centered around the coronavirus topic, and one of the things that the problems that we face, even in writing our essays and what have you, is the validity of the information that we are coming across, even in the scholarly journals. What is it that we're supposed to look for to believe, to find out who is believable in the scholarly journals? Because I know that it's not something that an ordinary person will just get up off the road, and just read it. These are long documents, made by many persons. So how do we know that, okay, the persons who wrote the journal are working for a pharmaceutical company, or they are a group of independent doctors from different, like they work for WHO and they're doing like a public health study. You understand me? How do we know? What are we supposed to look for?
Excellent question. I like when I do my research, I like meta-analysis, which looks at hundreds of studies and an evaluation of all of those studies by different people. I tend not to look at case reports because you know that I might have an interesting case, one case that is interesting that I put in a journal. So when I'm looking to make an assessment, I read the case reports because they will tell me of something possibly out of the way, but not the norm. But I don't base my evidence on a case report because that's just a one thing. So I like the meta-analysis because it gives me a broader summary of what several researchers have looked at. And then once I read that abstract and I read their methodology, I can then hear a discussion from several persons. And if you use those, you will have persons that agree with what is posited, and you'll have those that don't. But you can look at that conglomerate of studies and make a decision on your own. So I hear you about the one study and even the affiliations. And in most of these studies, persons should have as their disclaimer that they work with PAHO WHO or they're affiliated with Merck Sharp and Dome. They should have that disclaimer. And then once you see that, then you kind of can gauge where their biases might be. But for me, I like meta-analysis.
So just a further addition to my question. Persons who work with the Center for Disease Control in the US, those persons' reports are also considered valid?
Those persons' reports are considered valid because it is a national, what is it now? It's a national laboratory. It's a national laboratory that looks at data across all the states of the US and aggregates them and makes decisions based on what's fed into them. So it is specific to the USA though, but a lot of other countries will proxy their information. If it's happening here, then this might be the same thing that happened elsewhere. So it's proxied by other countries.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome very much, sir. M. Harris? Harris?
Yes, good night. I am wondering though, because I noticed when they started the vaccine on Wednesday, it was persons in the medical facilities, doctors, nurses, and other health workers who are getting the vaccine. So then, are those persons naive or they don't know that something is wrong? Because if persons are having, because I am in a group personally and a doctor is in there, he has taken it the vaccine, and he's saying that it is safe to be taken. So we are just being confused, not knowing what to believe.
But I'm trying to say that you need to see. So there's a doctor in your group that took the vaccine. Is he okay?
Yes.
He says nothing is wrong with him. And
Right, he said nothing is wrong with him, and he's encouraging others to take the vaccine.
so you have somebody who has taken it. So
I asked because I asked the question, because persons are saying, doctors are saying this, something is wrong, and so I am wondering. Yes, you have doctors, and persons will have their own personal opinion and views about things, and try to put it across to other persons. But I am thinking that if I don't want to take the vaccine, and this is my personal business, I should not put it across to anybody to try to convince them not to take it. That's just why I'm asking. That is from the perspective that
I want to agree with you. I, like all of us on this platform, have personal opinions about things, but my personal opinion is not a fact. My personal opinion is not a fact. And my personal opinion guides my life. It guides my life. So I make my decisions. But I can't tell you what I believe as a fact. That's not fair. But as I said, we are entitled to posit our opinions, but persons, the rest of us listening, must distill the information. So thank you very much. Joel Myers, I see your hand up.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ennis. I think is a very good presentation you made. Man, there's nothing that you don't have an answer for. I must commend you for that. And you realize the concern is a real one. There's some hesitancy within some persons. I think perhaps it's a time for us to review how we approach vaccination for some stuff, especially among healthcare workers. We perhaps need to visit the trans-theoretical model where you address stages of readiness. Perhaps it could be a national thing to look at the health promotion side of vaccine in that light, where people are at different stage of readiness and have targeted risk communication at each level. But it's a new thing for everybody over the world. These same concerns are raised in other countries. So we're not the only country facing this problem. But in all, I think it's a very good presentation. There are some concerns about ingredient. I think we still could improve on that communication. But
Okay. Joel, we lost you. Oh dear. I'm not hearing you, but
I am here. You didn't hear me?
I didn't hear the last part. Say the last sentence again, please.
No, I said there were some concerns raised about the ingredient because you realize the three vaccines that you showed slides on, they were total different ingredient. No, the AstraZeneca one, which is one of concern, it has two histidine ingredient in it, which I'm not sure the role of the second one. I think I asked it in the chat, but I didn't really get an answer. The L-histamine hydrochloride monohydrate, because it also has L-histamine as one of the listed ingredients. I was wondering what was the purpose of the second one, but maybe that could be communicated at another point and not necessarily in this forum, but I was saying overall, it was a very good presentation.
Thank you very much. And I appreciate your comment, certainly about the various stages of readiness. And I also want to agree with you on looking more deeply about healthcare workers, because healthcare workers' hesitancy for vaccination has got to be much more than the acquisition of knowledge. It has to be deeper rooted and seated than that, because healthcare workers have information. It is interesting when I survey our people for health, the same persons who tell you that they are not taking the vaccine are the very same persons that encourage their patients and vaccinate their patients. It is our healthcare workers who will not vaccinate their child, but they vaccinate other people's children, and they go out and find them and vaccinate them. So, you know, it requires, and I agree with you, it requires some deeper studies and analysis of this. It's not just superficial, really. I agree. Dwayne Williams, I see your hand up, sir.
Dr. Ennis, just to say that we have to cut off at close to 9. So I'm just going to say that after Karen Brown, that we probably have to look at another platform again where we have continued the discussion, but we're just going to be taking the other 5 persons and any other, maybe one other major concern. Thank you.
Wow.
Go
Thank
ahead.
you. I thank you. Dwayne Williams. Go ahead, please.
Dr. Ennis, have you taken the vaccine as yet?
I am not. It's not my turn yet, my darling. I'm waiting on my turn.
Good night.
Good night. Good night.
Yes, good night. This is Karen Brown.
Hi.
I just want to endorse the fact that it has been a very well spent night and a very, very excellent presentation.
Thank you much.
I want to agree with Mr. Myers, who, wanted to suggest that more research could have been done in the belief systems, which may be affecting health workers and their possible uptake of the vaccines. Because we're aware that, if the health workers are likely to take up the vaccines, then this may also have that ripple effect also on the general population. So that particular model in terms of people adopting the vaccine acceptance behavior would be very good to be integrated.
Thank you.
I want to say that, as a public health practitioner for the last 28 to 29 years, I have strong belief in the public health system that we have worked under with throughout the years. And of course, the studies and the research is coming out of the World Health Organization. And as president of the Jamaica Association of Public Health Inspectors also, I have been one of the first recipients of the vaccine on Wednesday. And I'm happy to say that I'm alive and I'm healthy, and I'm very energetic, and you can hear it in my voice, and I'm very excited, about the prospects of persons taking up the vaccine, and so that we can have a healthier population, and so we can get back to normal. I was also thinking that perhaps with our information, we see a lot of myths and beliefs. So we probably want to also look at some of our other practitioners, like those in the rural areas that, may even help to influence some of the myths and beliefs because that persons have. I think we call them maybe the ethno-medical practitioners. Some of them are called healers, community healers, and some people call them even the over people. So maybe some of these persons need to be targeted to also help to communicate, because it seems as if there is some communication taking place in that regard. And so, we have a larger reach so that we can have a better uptake in the general population. Thank you.
Thank you very much. While you were speaking, I was watching the chat, and I have noticed the levels of skepticism that is being posited. And colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, we've got to be responsible in our utterances. Because you have a particular belief, that does not give you the right to try and shove your belief down my throat. It's your belief. So, you know, when you are bordering on disrespectful in your comments and your utterances to get your opinion across, it doesn't augur well, because these sessions are not geared at being antagonistic. They are not geared at their sole purpose is to provide information. And once you receive that information, you can make a decision on your own. So I just want to, you know, tell us to be mindful of our utterances and what we say, because they do impact others. And the antagonism and the hostility is really not necessary. I don't believe that it, I think we should share pleasantly, and we should have the respect to disagree about a point and move on. Samsung, I don't know who Samsung is. Please speak. Samsung. I'm not hearing you.
Hello, you hear me
Hi.
better?
Yes.
All right, I'm saying thank you for your presentation and for informing us. And I have to agree with what you said and the other speakers before. I think we have to be careful how we are influencing other people. The vaccine is not mandatory. I think all of us should make our own informed decisions. Secondly, I have a question. I want to know if
I'm not hearing the question. Come again with the question, please.
the second question, if a person has recently taken a vaccine, or like the tetanus shot, can you go ahead and take this vaccine?
Okay, so I didn't hear it quite, but I'm gonna try and answer. Remember that there's a particular time you have to wait. So if you've had a vaccine, you cannot get the COVID-19 vaccine unless 14 days at a minimum have passed. Okay? So you cannot get the flu vaccine today and take the COVID-19 vaccine next. You have to wait 14 days at a minimum between taking the vaccine.
Okay, it was tetanus shot. Tetanus.
14 days, miss.
Okay, thank you.
14 days, yes. So that was Samsung K5OS. K5OS, go ahead, please. All right, Vanessa Blackstock, you want to go ahead?
Hi, good night, Dr. Ennis.
Hi.
Hi, great presentation. Thanks for the time that you're spending with us. Jumping right to it, I was someone that was advocating for vaccines, explaining it to family members as best as I could. I have, background in the science world. And yes, I was advocating and all of that. But finding out that we have the AstraZeneca vaccine, I started to have a couple hesitations when, I'm supposed to be taking it tomorrow, actually. And my concerns are raised because of the fact that it's not approved or somewhat authorized by FDA as yet. From reading so far, it's in its third phase, waiting to, have the US trials completed so that they can apply for it and hope for approval. So I just wanted to get your comments as it relates to them not getting the FDA approval as yet, and them, donating it to so many smaller countries as a way to get those thousands, those numbers up to complete trials. Is it something to be concerned about?
Very good question. But let's look at the FDA. FDA grants approval for vaccines and medications that are made in the US of A. It is a US entity. Now, The US is not the only country in the world that makes vaccines. There are many countries that manufactures vaccines on a normal circumstances. And these countries have their stringent regulatory authorities, which are the equivalent to the FDA in America. So the AstraZeneca vaccine was tried, went through all the phases, completed the phase 3 trials in the countries that have approved it for emergency use. So the medical sciences structure in the UK, which is the equivalent to the FDA, has granted its approval for emergency use. But outside of that, the external tier of ratification has been done by the WHO, which is also a US company. So the US entity of WHO has approved it for emergency use. So it is on the approved list for use. The AstraZeneca vaccine, manufactured in over 6 countries, have been approved by stringent regulatory authorities. And for us here in Jamaica, we don't accept any vaccine unless it has been ratified by the Strategic Advisory Group of experts, which work along with the WHO. So we're not taking AstraZeneca from India or Mexico that them alone say good, okay? The WHO has to put it on their list. And that is part of the challenge that countries are having with getting vaccines, because most persons rely on the WHO for this to happen. And how many vaccines are on their list? Just 4. Pfizer, Moderna, AstraZeneca, and I think Johnson & Johnson just made it on last week.
Yes, they did.
Right, so it's just those 4. But remember now, if you're following vaccines, you will know that there is Sinopharm, and there is Sinovac, and there's Sputnik V, and there is Novavax, and there is CureVac. All of those vaccines are out there being administered to people in various countries. But we don't have them because they are not WHO approved. So I think based on that, you can allay your fears.
Okay. The only other question I had was, and I think it's a bit too early, I'm not sure, is it a bit too early to make this a conversation as it relates to the variants that are, all over the place? Is it something to be worried about that, this one hasn't been sort of verified to be effective as it relates to the variant?
It's not something to worry about, but it's something to talk about. So yes, there are variants. And we can preface that by saying, the more we allow the germ to spread, the more it can go from people to people, is the more variants are developed. All right? Because they are trying to get away to be more resilient. But having said that, 3 variants are known. So we have the original one, we have the UK one, and we have the South African one. Those are the 3 that we know. And just bringing it home here to Jamaica, so we have found sporadic cases of the UK variants. We just found those maybe last week. We got some studies to say that we do have it. But the dominant or the predominant strain circulating is the original one. The AstraZeneca vaccine is marginally, just a wee bit less effective in the, excuse me, in the UK strain. But the recommendation is that it is only less effective in mild and moderate disease, but it still is efficacious in severe illness, which is what you see mainly in the older person. And therefore, the recommendation is for us to take the vaccine still. With regard to the South African strain, We have not identified it in country. We also know that its efficacy is decreased, especially in mild and moderate disease. And even in South Africa, where that strain is circulating, they're still taking the AstraZeneca vaccine. So that's where it's at for the strains at this time.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
You're welcome so much. Galaxy A51.
Hello, are you hearing me?
Yes, sir.
Yes, good evening. A question here. With the first set of dosage that come, will persons be able to get their 2 dosage within that time frame period?
Yes, sir. If you have been watching the press conferences that are being held, I know a timetable has been set up as to how we receive vaccines. And certainly by the end of May, going into June, we would have had so many vaccines if all goes according to plan. So there shouldn't be any shortage of the vaccine once, once we start, once you get over that hurdle of starting, then it should be smooth sailing after that.
Okay, thank you.
Welcome. Mrs. Johnson. Mrs. Johnson.
Yes, good night.
Hi.
Yes, I'm not sure if this question was answered earlier, but I heard you saying that it's a choice, but whenever you are traveling, right, would you need to take the vaccine, or you have a choice between the vaccine and the test?
You have a choice between going to the country that requires you to get the vaccine, and that is the right of every sovereign state. So a country might say, you cannot come into my country unless you get this vaccine. That's the country's right. So you have a choice. It's either you stay at your yard, stand at your yard, and don't go to the people in them country, or you take the vaccine and go. So, but that is not a health choice. That's a country choice.
Okay, thank you.
Madam Host.
Yes, Doc.
I think I've done all your questions in the chat, Miss.
Yes, please.
Not in the chat, in the raised hand.
You have a Dwayne Williams still? Dwayne Williams, are you there?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Good night, Doc.
Hi.
If your white blood cell count is low, can you take the vaccine?
It depends on what is your steady state and what is causing your white cell to be low.
Okay. And also,
then individual, yeah, that has to be individualized.
Yes, when the person has cancer.
Okay, yes. So is the person fit enough for chemotherapy? Is the person getting chemo?
No, they done chemo long ago.
Okay.
But
so is the person stable?
Sometimes the white blood cell get low.
Again, that's an individual. That would have to be, and obviously that person keeps a check on their white cell count because they're visiting the doctor. So you'd know what is your steady state and what state you can't go below, that sort of thing.
Okay, and also if you have lupus, can you take
Yes, you can take it if you have lupus. You can, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
There's no cost for taking the vaccine. The vaccine is being offered to persons free of cost at this time.
Well, you can just go take it, get it checked. And but if it's normal, if it's low, all right, you can. But if it's not all right.
Sorry. Good night again.
Doctor.
Good night again.
Good night. Good night.
Many have one of that.
Hello.
Yes, I'm listening to you, sir.
All right. Yes, there's one last thing that perhaps we didn't mention. I don't know if it was said. The precautions for people who were infected with COVID-19, the time period before they can be vaccinated, and what are some of the precautionary steps? Like if you are perhaps having a fever, maybe you didn't have COVID-19, maybe you will not be able to take the vaccine. So I don't know if those things were said earlier.
But if you have asked, then we should say them again. So there is no time that should lapse. There's no prescribed time to say after you have had the illness, you can become vaccinated. You just need to be well. So we don't, under normal circumstances, we don't vaccinate ill people. So if you have a rip-roaring fever and you're sick and popping down, we will not vaccinate. Okay? We vaccinate well persons. Now, so that's a given. So once your temperature is done and you're okay, then we can vaccinate you. Now, this business of waiting for a time period after you've had the illness has come out of the fact that certain countries, notably the USA, was trying to stretch the vaccine because it has been shown that natural immunity lasts for about 6 months. So the thought in the US when the vaccines just came out was that if I did get the disease, I have about 6 months before I can get it again. So let me give it to you and you and you who never get it, so that all of us can have a little toops of immunity. So that is how this time frame of waiting came about. It has nothing to do with the manufacturer's recommendations that it needs 2 doses to adequately protect you. And once you are well, you can get the vaccine.
Much we must cut off here. I recognize Galaxy Note 9, but we need to break here. We are almost 3 hours and we could continue to another 4. Dr.
Hello, I just have one question. Will the presentation will be available? So for those persons who have a chance to listen, will it be available after this?
Go ahead, Dr. Ennis.
No, well, I don't know if you're making the recording. I think you're all recording it, didn't you?
Yes, we are recording.
Okay, so they'll have to speak to you.
All right.
We'll have that. We'll have
Can
that.
I ask a question, please?
Okay, go ahead.
Good night, Dr. Ennis.
Hi.
Hi, my mother was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer, and she's not doing bad right now, and she is deciding not to take the vaccine. Should she take it or should she not take it?
Well, if she's doing well, I would suggest she takes it, but I would need to know more about her reasons for not wanting to take it and to show her why possibly it is important. So, but you would have to have I think you need to have that discussion with her to just see what her main concerns are.
So if
we lost you, go ahead.
I'd like to know if someone is diabetic, could they take the vaccine?
Yes, you're diabetic. Yes, you can.
All right.
Okay, because but my parents are in their 70s and they're not really well. So I just want to know if they should actually take it or not.
They should.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. All right, Madam Chair.
I think you have Galaxy Note 9. Sorry, we are just going to take the last raised hand. Galaxy Note 9. You can go ahead quickly, please. Galaxy Note 9.
Yes. Yes, good night. Is it okay for pregnant ladies to take the vaccine?
The vaccine is being offered to pregnant healthcare workers at this time, not the general population of pregnant people.
All right, thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Ennis. I think you have batted well. for almost 3 hours, coming under some serious pressure and some tough questions. I think, guys, we have to schedule another platform because a number of our participants just could not get in. So, Dr. Ennis, you'll have to give me another date so we can schedule another session for persons that just simply couldn't log on. Now, all good things must come to an end, and I just really think I'm just going to ask somebody from the platform to really express thanks to Dr. Ennis. So anybody, if you feel so impressed by the presentation and you just want to say thank you on behalf of the group, I'm just inviting you just to open your mic to make that thank you. Anybody?
Thank you, Dr. Ennis, on the behalf of us all for a very informative session. As we will look forward to making up our minds, we do thank you for taking the time to enlighten our darkness, even though some of us are very skeptical. Thank you so much, and thank you for this platform to pass on your knowledge. Thank you.
You're more than welcome. Thank you so much for having me. Thank you so much for putting up with me for so long. It was indeed my pleasure.
Can the presentation be shared?
Dr.
Can it
Ennis,
be
where can we
shared?
follow you? Who don't want to follow me? Yes. What you say?
Can
Yes,
the
I will.
presentation be shared?
Yes. Yes, I want to follow.
All right. Dr. Ennis, I want to follow you, so you have to tell them how is it that they can follow you.
And I am not
Yes,
into
we want to
social
follow
media,
you.
in a social
Can the
media.
presentation be shared?
Yes, she said yes.
We are, yes, you'll eventually get the presentation. You will get it at some point.
Can we get it to her emails? Because principal could not make it, so I would like to pass it on to her.
You'll have to send us your email.
I have sent the host and the co-hosts at my email address, so please look out for it.
Yeah, man. So the host, Miss Little,
yes,
you are the talk. Yes, you and I will have to talk.
All right.
Yes.
I think there's a very important question in the chat. How long does the immunity last for the vaccine? If you may.
Go ahead, Doc.
How long does the immunity last for the vaccine?
We don't know. We don't know for sure.
The vaccine doesn't cure, the vaccine doesn't prevent. What it does is that when you take it, it limits your symptoms. So if most people should take it, they'll still get the virus, so it will pass just the same, just that you won't have that extensive problem with it. So we'd like to know how long it lasts.
Right.
Well, all of what you said, not all of what you said is absolutely correct. There are a lot of things that are not so correct in what you said. But I am going to say that the duration of artificial immunity is not known for certain at this time. Based on the research that is ongoing, it is appearing as if we will need to take the vaccine on an annual basis, like how we take the flu vaccine. But that evidence is not complete at this time. So I cannot say how long artificial immunity will last.
All right.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. I just want to say to Dr. Ennis a big thank you for such timely update. Again, you'll have to set us another date so we can continue the discussion. And guys, just remember that the vaccine saves lives. I just want to also thank those persons, Mrs. Richards and Jenny, that stayed with us or worked with us in the EOC this afternoon. And most of all, I want to thank you, audience, for being such a good audience, for asking all the questions. And I'm sure that come as soon as we upload the date for you to get your appointment for the vaccine, we want you to be ambassadors for the Ministry of Health to empower persons to go out there and take your vaccine. Remember what Dr. Ennis said, that the vaccine, it is safe, it is effective, it saves life. We do want our students to return to school and normalcy, and we do want to have our countries opening up again. I just want to thank you all for joining us this afternoon, and it's bye from the EOC. Thank you very much. I just also want to thank our co-host and our host that stayed with us for the afternoon. So I just wanted to add that. Thank you very much.
Everyone, have a good night.
Good night, everyone.
Good night and thank you.
Good night. Welcome.
Good night, everyone. Bye.
Good night and thank you.
Stay safe.
Good night, my friend from Carolina.
Hi, very professional response.
It's everyone. Remember, host and co-host, I have first any message, all right, for the email.
My hand touched the keyboard and it changes it up and